Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we will be continuing the What If series, where I go over some hypothetical scenarios from Disventure Camp that could have taken place if one critical event was changed. Last time, we took a look at what would have happened if the Heroes Alliance kept you safe in episode 13 of season 3. Today's video will look at something different. If there are any specific what if scenarios that you would like to see me play out in the future, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. The topic for today's video is something that I haven't seen suggested, but it's something that I thought about after rewatching the All-Star season. Today's topic is, what if Karol isn't medically evacuated in episode 9 of season 2? As a refresher, episode 9 of season 2 featured the remaining 7 campers and Oliver competing in a pair sledding challenge, where one camper is blindfolded while their partner tells them how to steer. After many of the other campers ended up crashing, Karol was poised to win immunity. But due to Aiden sabotaging Karol by putting a spider on Oliver's head, Karol ended up crashing and breaking her leg, which resulted in her having to be medically evacuated from the competition. We all know what happened next. Ali was voted out by a vote of 4-2. Rhea turned over a new leaf and stole Rosa Maria's immunity totem, then used this totem to send Hunter home at the final 4, and James went on to win the season. But what would have happened if Karol wasn't medically evacuated? After all, Connor sprained his ankle at the final 5 of season 3 and he was still allowed to compete, despite having to hop on one ankle for most of episode 18. So if Karol's allowed to use her wheelchair that she was given at the end of episode 9, it's not unreasonable to believe that Karol could still compete if she wanted to, which she very clearly did. And with that, let's take a look at how this scenario plays out. With Karol still being in the competition, episode 9 has to have 2 eliminations in order to keep the season on track for 13 episodes. And to keep things consistent with past episodes of this series, we'll do this by having 2 elimination ceremonies, one after another, with Hunter retaining his immunity for both ceremonies, which he had in canon. So who goes home at this first elimination ceremony? Well, even though Karol is very injured, I doubt that's going to stop James and Aiden from trying to target Karol, considering the arguments that they had while going down the hill and after completing the challenge. In response, I can see Karol targeting the two of them, but specifically targeting Aiden since he was the one who planted the spider that caused Karol to crash and break her leg. For Hunter and Ali, I actually think they side with Karol to vote for Aiden. This is partially because Karol saved them in the previous episode by giving them immunity, but also because it could make Karol more inclined to work with them as a third ally, considering they lost Tess a couple of episodes ago. As for Rosa, I'm inclined to think that she votes with James and Aiden to take out Karol. Even though I'm sure that Rosa didn't like how Aiden sabotaged Karol, I don't think it would be enough to get Rosa to turn against Aiden, especially since she had the chance to do that in canon, and she didn't. This leaves Rhea as the swing vote. And I think that this is where Rhea makes a big move by deviating from her alliance and voting out Aiden. Keep in mind that this was the episode where Karol managed to convince Rhea that they don't fit in and that they need to keep their eyes on the grand prize, regardless of the friendships they've made while on the show. And considering that Rhea canonically had a confessional where she came to terms with the idea that playing dirty is the only way to make it far in this game, I think she could find the strength to betray her alliance and vote for Aiden, ultimately blindsiding him by a vote of 4-3. But now we go into the second vote. Hunter is still immune, and I still think that Karol continues her tirade against her enemies by targeting James. Hunter and Ali would probably join her since they voted with Karol last time, and doing this also buys them another ceremony of safety. On the flip side, James would probably still vote for Karol, now fueled by revenge. And Rosa Maria would probably join him, since she would know from the previous vote that James and Aiden were the only ones who voted with her to take out Karol. This leaves Rhea as the swing vote once again, and I'm pretty sure that Rhea would stick with Karol since I doubt that Rosa Maria has enough time to make Rhea feel guilty enough to flip back to her side. And it's not like James and Rhea were particularly close by this point, so I think Rhea would stick by Karol's side and vote for James. This makes it a 4-2 vote against James. But there's one big point to consider. Would Rosa use her immunity totem to save James? Now, I didn't bring this up during Aiden's elimination because I didn't think that Rosa would have a reason to feel unsafe. After all, her alliance of herself, James, Aiden, and Rhea should have been intact, and that's all she needed for a majority. But now that Aiden is gone and Rhea switched sides, Rosa knows that her and James are in danger, and it's almost a guarantee that one of them is being targeted. There are 2 questions to answer. A. Does Rosa Maria feel like James is more likely to be targeted than she is? And B. Does Rosa Maria care enough about James to save him with her totem? Well, I do think that Rosa Maria would believe that James is the target for this second ceremony. Considering how Aiden was just voted out and how Karol seemed to be the one leading the charge for it, it would make sense for James to be the next target. But would Rosa play her totem for James? On one hand, Rosa is a caring person and I could see her wanting to save an ally of hers. However, it's not like Rosa is particularly close to James by this point, and she did vote for him back in episode 8, so there are some questions in the air about this. But in the end, I decided that because Rosa regretted not using her totem to save Lake, a close ally, back in episode 8, Rosa wouldn't want to make the same mistake twice. And now that it's pretty clear that one of her last allies will be voted out without her intervention, Rosa would not be able to pass up on the chance to save him. Therefore, I see Rosa saving James with her immunity totem, cancelling the 4 votes against James, leaving Karol to be voted out with only 2 votes cast against her. So Karol doesn't make it much farther than in canon, but at least she was able to take out Aiden before leaving. Heading into this episode, there are 2 things that I want to point out before the challenge. First of all, I see Rosa and Rhea having a talk about Rhea's betrayal in the previous episode. I think Rhea would try to insist that Karol got to her head and convince her to play for herself, but Rhea would also try to assure Rosa that she doesn't want to vote her out. And this is completely genuine. After all, now that Rosa doesn't have an immunity totem, there's no reason for Rhea to try and blindside Rosa. Rosa would probably be upset, but considering that Rhea hasn't eliminated her yet, and because Hunter and Ali are still in the game, I think Rosa would play nice with Rhea and pretend like everything is peachy keen, since she still needs Rhea's vote to help her split up Hunter and Ali. And the second thing that I want to bring up before the challenge is whether or not Rhea still steals everyone's stuff and frames someone for it. After some thought, I decided that Rhea wouldn't go through with it. Even though the canonical event that motivated Rhea to frame someone for theft was Karol getting injured, I feel like Rhea was also motivated to do it so she could steal Rosa's immunity totem. But because Rosa no longer has her immunity totem, Rhea doesn't really have anything to gain from getting Rosa out. Especially since in this timeline, Rhea is the swing vote between 2/3 of the poly trio and the remainder of the friendship alliance. So it's not like Rhea needs to do something to put a target on someone's back. She can just sit tight and be in the power position. And if that was villainous enough for Rhea in Season 3, I think it should be fine for Rhea in Season 2. Now we move on to the challenge, which is the balloon challenge. This challenge ultimately comes down to accuracy and willingness to shoot. Canonically, Rosa was really gun-shy, so she'll probably lose this challenge without firing a single dart. And for James and Rhea, even though they are less gun-shy, they canonically were only able to remove 2 balloons from Hunter by shooting at it, so I don't think it's likely that they can outshoot both Ali and Hunter. Meanwhile, Hunter was able to shoot out 10 balloons in canon without any help. So with someone like Ali by his side, who would likely have experience playing first-person shooter games, the 2 of them should easily be able to take out all of James, Rosa, and Rhea's balloons without losing too many of their own. This means that the challenge likely comes down to Hunter versus Ali. And I've talked about this situation in previous What If videos, so I'll keep the result the same. And the result is that Ali shoots out Hunter's balloons and wins immunity for herself. The reason for this is because in the previous episode, Ali canonically voiced that she wasn't a fan of how Hunter was always taking charge. So, it's possible that this lingering annoyance carries over to this episode, where Hunter tries to take the lead and make sure that Ali isn't getting hurt. Therefore, I could see these feelings boiling over, prompting Ali to shoot Hunter's remaining balloons so she could finally take charge of her own destiny, allowing her to win immunity. But who gets voted out? Well, despite Ali betraying Hunter to win immunity, I don't think it would cause enough of a fight for them to not vote with each other, since they're still each other's closest ally. So, I see them voting for James, since that's what they did at the last ceremony. Meanwhile, I see James and Rosa voting for Hunter, wanting to split up the other duo and taking out the biggest threat to win immunity. This leaves Rhea as the swing vote, and I'm inclined to believe that she sides with James and Rosa to take out Hunter. For one, Hunter is clearly the biggest physical threat, so Rhea knows that she may not get another chance to take him out if she passes this one up. And secondly, Rhea and Ali are canonically not too distant from each other. Considering how comfortable Ali is with having strategic conversations with Rhea in canon, I think Rhea would prefer it if Ali was completely loyal to her above anyone else. And the only way for that to happen is to take out Hunter first. And yes, I know that Rhea would probably want to get Rosa's complete loyalty as well, but considering how Rhea just betrayed Rosa in the last episode, I think betraying her again in a second consecutive episode would eliminate all possibility of earning her loyalty. So, Rhea would see voting for Hunter as the safer option, sending him home by a vote of 3-2. Sorry Hunter, but hopefully you don't screw up and kiss Ali out of the blue like you did in canon. Let's start episode 11 with some pre-challenge interactions. To start, Rhea would go to Ali and assure her that she will be on her side and that they need to work together to take out James next. And although Ali probably isn't happy that she lost her closest ally, I think she would agree to work with Rhea, knowing that her options are limited. On the flip side, James and Rosa would agree to stick together, with James suggesting that they turn against Rhea even if Ali doesn't win immunity. Rosa would be slightly hesitant to this idea. Even though Rhea hasn't exactly been the most loyal ally, I don't think that Rosa is the vengeful type, so I doubt that she would turn against Rhea purely out of spite, especially since Rhea hasn't made a move to directly target Rosa Maria. Now let's move on to the challenge. Part 1 of the challenge is running to a cliff and then jumping off it to land in the water below. So the important factors to consider are the speed of the campers and their willingness to jump off the cliff. Now, the most accurate reference of the campers' running speeds is in the Season 2 premiere, when the campers had to run to the campsite. In this early challenge, Ali arrived first, followed by Rosa Maria, then by James, with Rhea bringing up the rear. Even though Rhea has shown to actually be a fast runner in Season 3, we can't guarantee that Rhea in Season 3 has the same athleticism as in Season 2. So, we have to go with this ranking right here. Therefore, Ali should be the first to reach the cliffs, followed by Rosa, then James, and Rhea in last. However, just because Ali reaches the cliff first, it doesn't mean that she will jump first. Do you remember episode 5 of Season 3 when Ali was scared to jump off the cliff? She only jumped once. Ashley gave her a pep talk. So, even though Ali gets to the cliff first, I think she freezes out of fear and doesn't jump right away. This gives Rosa time to reach the cliffs, but I actually think Rosa stops to console Ali, noticing that she's visibly upset by the height of the cliffs. Even though they aren't directly allies, I think Rosa's motherly instincts would kick in and get her to give Ali a little pep talk. This pep talk would give James and Rhea time to catch up. And since James is faster than Rhea at this point in the timeline, let's say that James reaches the cliffs first and jumps off the highest cliff, earning him the largest advantage in the next challenge. Rhea shows up shortly after and jumps off the level 3 cliff. And with Rosa's encouragement, Ali jumps off the lowest cliff, much like how James helped Aiden jump off the lowest cliff in canon. This leaves Rosa with the level 2 cliff. Now we move on to part 2, where the campers have to shoot fruits at Mina. And based on their placements in part 1 of the challenge, James gets to use watermelons, Rhea gets to use pineapples, and Ali gets to use lemons. And just like I stated in previous What If videos, since there was no third place fruit in canon since James opted out in canon, we'll have Rosa use grapefruits as her ammo, since those are smaller than pineapples but larger than lemons. So who wins? Well, I don't think Rhea wins, since she wasn't able to win in canon using the largest ammo, so I don't see how she could win in this timeline now that she has smaller ammo. I also don't think Rosa wins, since she showed in the previous episode that she's gun-shy, and there's no real evidence to suggest that she may be good at shooting. This leaves James and Ali as the top 2 choices. Now, neither of them have any true evidence at being good at shooting. The closest evidence is the episode 7 dodgeball challenge, but throwing a dodgeball is different from using a slingshot. And besides, the 2 of them did equally as bad in that challenge anyways, so it's probably not our best guide to deciding a winner. Ultimately, since there's no concrete evidence about their shooting skills, I feel like I have to give Ali the win here, due to the potential for her to have experience with aiming well due to her video game experience. Sure, she may have the smallest ammo, but if Aiden can win with the smallest ammo, surely Ali can too. So Ali wins immunity. With Ali immune, James sets his sights on Rhea, knowing that she's less trustworthy than Rosa. Meanwhile, Rhea votes for James in retaliation, considering she voted for him back at the final 6. Ali would probably join Rhea since they worked together to try and get Aiden and James out earlier in this video. This leaves Rosa as the swing vote. And even though Rhea would probably try and get Rosa to flip on James, I just think it would be out of character to flip on James considering all they went through in the last few ceremonies. So, I see Rosa joining James to force a tie between James and Rhea, meaning that they have to face off in a tiebreaker. Oddly enough, I actually think this is a pretty even matchup. James's biggest weakness is probably that he's not good at balancing, and Rhea's biggest weakness is that she's not good with being underwater. And after removing these weaknesses, the 2 of them were pretty much equal in the canon Season 2 finale, at least until Lake and Karol shot golf balls at them. And when they faced off in part 2 of episode 7's challenge, they were about even in terms of strength until their podium tipped over. So, I could realistically see either of them winning a tiebreaker. Since we don't know what the tiebreaker would be at this point, and because I think they're equally likely to win whatever challenge is used for the tiebreaker, I think I just have to choose the option that is best for the overall story. And right now, since Rhea has taken on the role of the antagonist for the latter half of the season in this timeline, I feel like having her advance to the finale will help maintain some form of tension and drama in the season, especially since she would have to deal with the knowledge that Rosa had voted for her. So, I'm deciding that Rhea would beat James in the tiebreaker, which is very possible, and James is eliminated for good. Sorry James, but at least you get to go see Aiden again, which is nice. Now we're at the finale, with Rosa Maria, Rhea, and Ali as our finalists. Before we get into the challenge, let's figure out who each of the eliminated campers chooses to support. I think Rosa ends up with 5 supporters: Kai, Maggie, Lake, Aiden, and James. Maggie and Lake easily side with Rosa due to their collective friendship alliance. Kai sides with Rosa because it seemed like they had pretty pleasant interactions with each other while in the game, and Aiden and James side with Rosa because she stayed loyal to them from episode 9 onwards. As for Rhea, I think she ends up with 2 supporters. Connor supports her due to their early game interactions, while Karol supports Rhea due to their decently strong bond from episode 9. This leaves Ali with 3 supporters. Hunter and Tess support Ali since the 3 of them were in an alliance together, and Yul supports Ali because he's definitely voiced his hate for both Rosa and Rhea during season 2, so Ali is his only option. And from these supporters, the finalists have to choose their helpers. I think Rhea chooses Connor since that's what happened in canon. I think Ali chooses Hunter since he's probably the strongest out of all her supporters, and I think Rosa picks Lake since I think they form the strongest bond out of all of Rosa's supporters. Now let's get to the challenge. Part 1 is an uphill skiing and snowmobile race. In canon, Rhea and Connor were able to complete this portion of the challenge pretty quickly, so it's reasonable to believe that they would be able to pull off a similar performance. As for Rosa and Lake, there's no evidence to suggest that Rosa is terrible at balancing, as opposed to someone like James. So if we assume that Rosa is just as good as Rhea at balancing, then Rosa should finish this section before Rhea. This is because in canon, Lake was Aiden's driver in this challenge and she managed to pass Rhea and Connor on their way to the end of this section. Therefore, since Lake is Rosa's driver, Rosa should be able to pull ahead of Rhea heading into the next section. And for Ali, even though there's no evidence to suggest that Ali would be bad at balancing, there's no evidence to suggest that Hunter would be better at handling a snowmobile than Connor or Lake. Hunter did handle a boat in episode 1, but a boat and a snowmobile are 2 different vehicles. So, I think it's safe to say that heading into the driving portion, Lake and Rosa are in first place, with Connor and Rhea in second place, and Ali and Hunter bringing up the rear. The second section is the driving portion. In canon, both Lake and Rhea drove their cars, so I wouldn't expect that to change in this timeline. As for Ali and Hunter, I feel like Ali would want to drive. Even if Hunter is generally better in challenges, I feel like Ali would want to take control of her own fate and lead, just like she previously established in this season. With this setup, I honestly don't think the order changes. In the canon challenge, Lake and Rhea were both aggressive, and Lake ended up pulling ahead with a narrow lead. So, I don't think that would change here. Also, since Lake and Rhea are driving quite aggressively, I think it's reasonable to say that Lake and Rhea are also driving a little faster than they normally would. So even if Ali drives a little faster than she usually would, since both Lake and Rhea are also driving faster than normal, the 3 of them should be making the same increase in speed. This would mean that no one should be able to pass each other. So the order shouldn't change heading into the climbing section. Rosa and Lake are still in first, Rhea and Connor are still in second, with Ali and Hunter in last. Now we're at the climbing section. For Rosa, I don't think there's a significant difference in size between her and Aiden, so since Lake was canonically able to get Aiden to the top of the cliff in first place, I think she should be able to do the same for Rosa. Additionally, Aiden could have saved time in canon if he didn't stop to have a conversation with Lake about James. So since Rosa doesn't really have anything paramount to talk about with Lake, Rosa should be able to get to the top of the cliffs a bit faster than Aiden did. For Rhea and Connor, they canonically stopped to have a brief argument over Rhea's villainous actions. And considering that Rhea has been pretty villainous in the recent episodes, and adding that Rhea's probably not happy that Rosa voted against her at the last ceremony, I could see Rhea trying to throw the rock at her like she did to Aiden in canon, but Connor would stop her, forcing them to pause to discuss Rhea's recent behavior. And I think this pause would give time for Ali to catch up. When you combine Ali's generally lightweight and Hunter's strength, I think Hunter could easily pull Ali up the mountain, meaning that they should be able to catch up to Rhea and maybe even pass her. So, I think heading into the cliff portion of the challenge, we have Rosa and Lake in first place, with Ali and Hunter in second place, with Rhea and Connor narrowly behind them. For the cliff portion, it basically comes down to who can get dressed in their wingsuit and jump off the cliff first. But this is where things kind of go awry. Even though Rhea is probably the last one to reach the cliff, I actually think she's the first one to jump off. Here's why. Since Rhea is entering this section in last place, Rhea knows that she needs to do something to slow down either Ali or Rosa. And since Ali has shown that she's afraid of heights, and Rhea would know this since she had to run past Ali when this happened in episode 11, Rhea would likely taunt Ali about her fear of heights. And considering that Rhea gave Aiden a similar speech in canon, having her give a speech to Ali isn't a stretch. And I think we get a result similar to what happened in canon. Rhea taunts Ali to the point where she breaks down. Rosa runs to comfort Ali, which gives Rhea enough time to get her suit on, jump off the cliff, and glide down to the dock, allowing her to secure the first spot in the finale. Connor also abandons Rhea as a result, but we'll get to that later. Anyways, this leaves Rosa and Ali competing for one spot in the final 2. Ultimately, the only way that I can see this going is for Ali to be so grateful for Rosa's support that she allows Rosa to take the second spot in the final 2. While Ali isn't notably a selfless individual, I feel like this could make some sense. Having Rosa consistently help Ali and give her advice could make Ali realize that she shouldn't have trusted Rhea this whole time and that someone as kind as Rosa deserved to win the game. And since we know that Ali's relationship with her mother isn't too good, having a mother like Rosa support Ali through her actions might soften Ali's heart enough to allow Rosa to jump down to the docks and advance to the final two. I don't know how realistic that result is, but I feel like it's more realistic than Rosa giving up her spot to Ali, since Rosa has a daughter that she needs to take care of, and the prize money would really help with that. So, the end result is that Rosa glides down to the dock and takes the last spot in the final two, leaving Ali as our bronze medalist. Sorry Ali, but this is game over for you. Next is the boat driving challenge. In canon, Rhea drove really quickly, so I expect her to do the same here. As for Rosa, she still has Lake by her side, and since Lake mentioned in episode 1 that she has boat driving experience, I think she would be more willing to move faster to keep up with Rhea. So if they're both driving faster than average, I think the distance between Rhea and Rosa remains the same, meaning that Rhea begins the diving portion of the challenge with a decent lead over Rosa. Now we're at the diving section. There's no evidence to suggest that Rosa is uncomfortable with diving or bad at finding things, so we'll assume that her performance in this section is just average. But for Rhea, there are a couple instances in the canon finale that indicate that Rhea is uncomfortable with scuba diving. And since Rhea no longer has a helper, she's probably unable to find her way out of the caves, allowing Rosa to take the lead. Now, Rhea probably asks Lake for help in escaping the caves. But does Lake help her? Since Rhea indirectly caused Lake's elimination and directly voted Aiden out of the game, you could make the case for Lake not wanting to help Rhea. However, Lake does have morals, so I don't think that Lake would stoop to Rhea's level and let her die. And considering Rosa's morality and how she was willing to help Rhea out of the cave in canon, I think Rosa would support Lake's decision to do that, even if it's not ideal for her. Therefore, I think Lake reluctantly helps Rhea out of the cave, but it doesn't change the fact that Rosa enters the final part of the challenge with a sizable lead. The final part of the challenge requires the finalists to race a motorcycle around some obstacles while two other campers are shooting golf balls at them. Since both finalists have multiple people on their side, let's figure out who steps up for each finalist. But first, since Ali is out, we need to decide who she and her supporters will support out of the final two campers. I think Yul chooses Rhea due to her villainy, and because in the canon episode 13, Yul did decide to support her even though he hated her. As for Ali, Tess, and Hunter, I think they all go the same way and support Rosa Maria. Even though Tess canonically chose Rhea since she was the only one she knew, I think after Rosa stood by Ali and consoled her through her fear of heights, I think that would endear Rosa to Hunter and Tess, prompting them to join Ali in supporting Rosa. With that done, we need to decide who will shoot the golf balls for each finalist. For Rhea, the options are Karol, Connor, and Yul. And between these three, I think Karol easily steps up to shoot, since that's what she did in canon. For Rosa, she has 8 options, and let's go by process of elimination. Maggie and Kai are too passive, so they're out. Lake is busy driving Rhea back to shore, so she's out. And I get the impression that Tess isn't willing to resort to violence, so she's out. As for the remaining 4 campers, I could see any of them wanting to step up to help Rosa. But based on the events of this episode and the ones before it, I think Ali is chosen to shoot the gun for Rosa. Not only does she get to help the camper who gave her mental support, but she also gets to regain control of her remaining power in the game by stepping up, which is what she's wanted for a while. Therefore, we have Ali and Karol shooting golf balls while Rosa and Rhea attempt to ride motorbikes to the finish line. Canonically, Rhea was able to ride the motorbike pretty well, but she only caught up to James because he crashed into an obstacle while looking behind him. Since Rosa is a more cautious individual, evidenced by her concern for James's speed when he drove her around in episode 12, I don't think that Rosa would crash. She might not drive as fast as James, but she should be able to stay in the lead for a large portion of this section. Therefore, I think it comes down to Karol and Ali's shooting abilities. Canonically, Karol was able to slow down James pretty well, so it's safe to assume that she would be able to slow down Rosa as well. She probably even knocks her off the bike on one instance, like she did to James in canon. And for Ali, most of my assessment of her shooting abilities have been speculation, so there's no guarantee that she's accurate. Not to mention that even if Ali is accurate with a handgun, that doesn't guarantee that she would be accurate with a Gatling gun, which is what she would have to use in this scenario. Therefore, since there's more evidence to suggest that Karol is a great shot, I'll have her knock Rosa Maria off of her bike once. And by the time Rosa gets back on her bike and continues driving, Rhea has caught up, leaving them neck and neck heading into the last moments of the challenge. But there's one more factor to consider. In the canon finale, Aiden told Lake to hit the Gatling gun, causing it to shoot multiple golf balls at a time, ultimately causing Rhea to fall off her motorbike and allowing James to cross the finish line first. The question is, since Aiden is supporting Rosa Maria in this timeline, does Aiden tell Ali to do the same? I actually think he does this. In this timeline, even though Aiden was eliminated earlier than in canon, he and James still had time to form a strong alliance with Rosa Maria, and they voted together all the way to Aiden's elimination in episode 9. And considering that Rhea was the swing vote who caused his elimination, as well as the camper who directly beat James in the tiebreaker that sent him home, and combined with Rosa Maria's clear consolation of Ali, I think Aiden would want Rhea to lose badly enough, or want Rosa Maria to win badly enough, that he tells Ali to hit the Gatling gun. She complies, causing many golf balls to be shot at Rhea, causing her to fall just short of the finish line, just like in canon. And this setback allows Rosa Maria to cross the finish line first and claim the $1 million prize for her and her daughter. So we have our answer. If Karol isn't medically evacuated in episode 9 of season 2, then Karol pulls Aiden down with her as they're both taken out in episode 9, Hunter is taken out after his immunity streak runs dry, James is taken out in a close tiebreaker, and Rosa goes on to defeat the villainous Rhea to win the season. I can't tell if this timeline is better than what we got in canon, but for the most part, things kind of stayed the same. James and Aiden still get together, Rhea still becomes a villain, Rosa Maria still tries to play with her heart, and Hunter still has to accept that he has a lot to learn about being a good boyfriend. But there are some changes that I think are an improvement. Karol actually succeeds in her plan to get revenge on Aiden. Ali actually gets some kind of personal development as she learns to take control of her own life. Rhea doesn't make the mistake of taking out her closest ally like in canon. And Rosa Maria wins even more money that she can use to take care of her and her daughter. Seems like a happy ending to me. And that about does it for this video. What do you think of my theory? Do you agree with my thought process? Do you disagree? Did I miss something big that would impact the entire video? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Whether you're riding a bike or sledding down a mountain, wearing a helmet is always the right decision. Especially if you're going to be blindfolded while doing it. Thank you, and farewell.